Hello and good afternoon. This is Entrepreneur Wilderness Radio Show, and your host today is Oyeno Alubara. And my guest today is hails from the USA. Her name is JP Jones. I'm going to go straight into her biography, and then we're going to hit it off with the first question, and then take it from there. She wears many hats. Among them are graphic designing, web designing, social media marketing, teaching, book publishing, blogging, and writing. The author of Market Yourself, a beginner's guide to social media, JP is the owner of Page One Media and Page One Publishing. Page, that's in Paige. One is a graphic design firm, the other a publishing company that work with domestic and international clients on projects ranging from basic logo development to magazine and book design. Her firms are contracted in the joint venture with Calypsis, that's COLLIPSIS Web Solutions LLC, which handles web design and development for clients around the world. Jones has also served as an adjunct instructor at Oral Roberts University, teaching classes for communications department. Jones has had the honor of winning over 150 awards for her design and promotions work over the years. In 2010, she was named one of the top 101 female bloggers to watch by WE Magazine. Jones has been designing professionally for over 10 years and immerses herself in the current trends and technologies emerging in the industry. Staying on top of technology is her job. Teaching it to others is her passion. Welcome to the show, JP.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So, what's on your mind, and what's the burning issue that you want to tell my listeners who are budding entrepreneurs, or someone looking to start on their path to entrepreneurship?
I think the biggest thing for me and what I would tell anybody that's trying to start out, with their own company or start from the ground up is that you've just got to stick with it when it gets tough. Because, when we first started out, it's exciting, it's new, it's fresh. A few months into it, it gets a little less exciting and a little more work, And so just kind of as you go through that entrepreneurial journey, there's going to be days where you think, man, I would rather just go work at a restaurant, instead of having to deal with all this stuff. Because ultimately, there's a lot of responsibility that's involved in it. Ultimately, there's a lot of, we see the glamorous side of being an entrepreneur. Oh, yeah, they're their own boss. They do, they're whatever. But then when the nitty gritty really gets in there, and it's, having to be responsible for the ins and outs every day and having the buck stop here, there's pros and cons to all of that. But a lot of times it's just a lot of responsibility. And so I would just say, stick through those tough times because the rewards are really worth it. But just hang in there. And I think that's what separates the people that become successful in small business from the ones that, give up halfway into it. And we hear about a lot of small businesses and entrepreneurs that don't make it and that don't become successful. And I think a lot of it is just that sticking it out in the middle when it's no longer really, it's not that honeymoon phase anymore, and it's not really exciting, but it's work again.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what what I've gone through myself in terms of setting up ventures in the past and even now. You go through that period where it's you just on some kind of mad hype because everyone's saying, oh great, well wicked, oh this is really good for you, and then when people look away and now you got to get to the real work, and like you said, there are days where you just think you get things completely wrong, some things just don't match, and you think, why am I doing this? And that little voice in the back of your mind starts talking and chattering away, and then you think, I'm actually up to the task, and and you're right. You just have to just stick it and just find that the passion that you have, reignite it, and then just keep on going.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, tell us a little bit how, I mean, within your own venture, how did it all start, and from where you are now today.
Well, I've had a very interesting entrepreneur journey because I actually started my first company when I was 8 years old. And a lot of people laugh and they think, oh, okay, well, you had a lemonade stand, you had whatever. But actually, when I was 8, I started, my family had always been self-employed. And so they kind of taught me that entrepreneur spirit, and they actually had a woodworking business, and they would travel and set up at different festivals and things and sell, their woodworking. Well, as an artist myself, I actually said, okay, well, I'm going to be here anyway. I should be able to tap in and make some money doing this. And so when I was 8, I pulled my little sister. She was 4 years younger than me, so she was 4. I pulled her along and I said, okay, we're going to do something and make some money while we're here if we're going to be here anyway. And we actually started face painting for other children, and of course parents would just eat it up. And so we did that for 6 years, and literally from that time, from since I was 8 years old, I've always had my own company in some form or fashion. Thankfully, it's changed over the years, but I've actually always had something to fall back on. Even when I was working a full-time job, I would have something on the side that was my own that I was, working and developing. And so throughout the years, just the different things that you learn by doing that, and letting the businesses develop and change and take their shape. The current company that the foundation that I have now started about 10 years ago. When I was in college, I started taking on freelance design projects on the side while I was still learning and getting my degree.
Hmm.
And so as that just kind of developed, and you eventually get to the place then where you say, okay, well, I'm still working a full-time job now. I've got this, going on the side, or at least for me, that's how I did it, because I wanted to make sure I would be secure, in the business before launching into it full time.
Yeah.
And so you just kind of come to that point where you feel like you're working, two full-time jobs, and you finally get to that point where, okay, yeah, I can take this leap now and make that my full-time profession. And, once I took that leap, and I've been full-time in it now for 2 years, and after that it just continues to grow and it continues to snowball. And of course now you get to the point where you have to hire staff and you have to do all this other stuff, and so you have to let it keep growing. But it's every stage is kind of its own monster. And like we've talked about, you get to that point with each stage where you feel completely overwhelmed, and you get to that, every day you're just trying to get as much done as you can, and you finally know, okay, it's time for a next level. We're fixing to go to the next level here.
Truly, I mean, the way you explained that, I mean, from 8 years old, you've already had the how can I put it, the character to handle business situations. I mean, that is something that is unheard of. And like you said, most people think, oh, that's oh, you're 8, you must be something unserious. But it was a very serious business, and to give you that background to doing what you're doing now, I mean, that would probably separate you from most people. What would you say to someone who is in that situation where they're at work, and they really, really want to, they're hearing all this glamorous stuff about entrepreneurship. What would be the
Sure.
one thing to tell them?
Well, I think first and foremost, I think it's important that you go ahead and devote yourself to the full-time job that you have. And what I mean by that is, even when my business started getting big enough that I did feel like I was working two full-time jobs, I tried to be really careful and make sure that I was giving my boss what they deserved and what they were paying me for.
Yeah,
And I think, again, that's something that we see a lot. You see an entrepreneur they've got all these ideas, because in a lot of respects, an entrepreneur is a visionary, and they have these ideas. And then sometimes that's where the problem comes along, is they don't necessarily have the follow through with it.
yeah,
And so a lot of times, when they're working that full time job, they have all these ideas. And so they're distracted, on the job. But I think it's important to make sure that you are giving your all there. And one of the things that you can do, if you're in an environment where they will support you in that and support you in your endeavors, make sure that you're very open about what you've got going on the side, as far as the position. And of course, I was really blessed with that. The position that I had as a designer full time for a company, they were very supportive of what I was doing, and my own clients, and they would even refer people to me. So if you show that you're honorable in what you're doing, it can also actually be a really good place to help you step off into that. The contacts and things that you are making on your job, don't look at that as, this is taking me away from being an entrepreneur. Look at it as a networking experience, where you don't know when you might need somebody that you've met here on this job down the road, and where they may have a connection that you could use.
truly, that is key. I mean, because most people, they have this idea where sometimes the job that they walk away from, to be an entrepreneur, you have to be doing something completely and utterly different. And sometimes I know people where they they've changed the job and they become, I don't know, quasi type freelance, and they go
Mhm.
back to the same company and they still do business with their old employees. which is in my mind is like, in a way more smarter than trying to strike out on your own with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, and that's the thing. It's very I think it's very important not to burn bridges, especially as an entrepreneur. You need all of the support network and all of the connections that you can possibly have. And we hear it all the time, that you can't make it alone. And I think in a lot of respects that's true. You do need a network. You need the connections that you can build, and everybody has a different piece that they can partake into your business as you're growing it and as it is increasing.
that's right. I mean, what are your ideas about if someone was to now break away? So I'm still following this whole theme of breaking away from a company, and
Hmm.
then I decide to become totally self-employed. What would you say to that?
Hmm. I would say go for it. At the same time, I would say, make sure that you're not jumping too soon. We always say step before you leap, and I think that that's important. I think it's important to know that you do have that cushion there and that you're ready to go. I think that that phase and when you're ready is going to be different for everybody. Again, I'm a little more conservative, so for me, I had to really know that I had enough clients that, it wasn't going to be a problem. But some people are more risk takers, and so they may be able to say, okay, well, when I get this number of clients, I'm going to be ready to jump.
But
So I think,
I think the way that you did it, I mean, you're basically focusing your business on your clientele versus expenditure. So you need more money coming in rather than you spending out to try and try and grow your business before your time, basically.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think, again, one of the things that I see a lot of entrepreneurs doing is jumping out here and getting into a lot of debt, with their startup.
Yeah.
And, again, with the economy the way it is and all of the different stuff going on, to me, I would say, do what you can on a smaller budget because it can be done. We see it done every day with people that, start out with virtually nothing and are able to build that up.
Yeah.
So, be really careful about incurring a lot of debts that are going to kind of weigh down your small business. And anything that you can do on a smaller budget when you're starting out, I would definitely say go for that. If you are working a full-time job, like we've been talking about,
Yeah.
that kind of helps you in that respect because you have that steady income coming in while you're letting this other stuff build up. But just don't be afraid to move too quickly. Let it take its time, let it develop, slowly. And when my business partner Nicholas Clayton and I started Calypsis Web Solutions because I had already had the print design stuff going. He was doing web design stuff on his own, so we decided to join up and
Mm.
and take my talents and take his software abilities and put them together. Well,
Yeah.
when we started that, we started with a single client.
Right.
We started with a single client. We started that particular company. It's been over 5 years. Today, we have over 150 clients in 15 countries and in over 30 states here in the US.
Mm.
And every client that we've got has been referred to us by somebody else. And so, again, I think that's an area where entrepreneurs really overlook the value of word of mouth marketing and that the
That,
people that you interact with, they're going to
that's,
tell
that's
somebody something, whether it's good or bad.
that's exactly where I was because we're mobbed with social media and stuff. I'm not knocking social media. I use it myself, so I'm not knocking it. But it's one to understand where you don't want to over leverage the power of just people just passing on your information like that.
Absolutely.
I mean, is that everyone kind of forgets that? I mean, in a way, social media is like a kind of tech, we call it a software version of that. So, I mean,
Right.
if you could do one before the other, then it may, it may work better for you. So,
Well, and you're absolutely right. I mean, social media really just makes it even that much easier for somebody to talk about you, whether it's good or bad.
oh, then you got the negatives as well, exactly. So you got to be very careful
Exactly.
about that. Um, I did have a question. All right, when people do hear, you can build your business from scratch, and then you take your time incrementally before you start exponentially growing as a company.
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
the media, they always portray entrepreneurs as if to say, we have to always get this VC capital, and we have to be slamming
Right.
the table and getting all this finance first before we can strike out. I mean, what would you say to that?
Well, again, for me, I would say absolutely not. But
Mm.
again, and depending on the industry, of course, I'm sure it's different. But I agree with you. You see so much of that. You hear about these competitions for grants and this and that and whatever. But for me, again, I kind of look at it as if I can go into it without having a lot of capital interest and having that, hanging over my company, if nothing else,
Yeah.
then I'm going to be better off in the long run because I feel like it's a little more stable that way. If I've really built it up from the ground up, then I feel
Yeah.
like I've got a stable foundation